temperature of the sun. And with that amount of heat, I'd be really surprised if it didn't warm.
Watch them sand my edges. This will.
I've got my pieces of steel in the forge, and I start trying to get a basic bolo shape into the steel.
That whole piece he's got there is 7 inches long, and I don't know if it's long enough. 15 minutes!
I feel the weight of the time over me, and I want to finish. I want to make this look good. And then once I have a bolo shape, I have to quench. My blade, it's hard. It's somewhat bolo shaped, and I'd like to say it's not bad.
The second quench went good. I got a good straight blade. I start to put in my bevels. That's when I noticed the D-lamp.
Joe's really examining his steel over here. I wonder if there's an issue.
At this point in time, if I'm at my home forge, this is going into the scrap pile, and I'm starting over. I could put a Band-Aid on it, but I'm not really fixing the problem. I very well could be the one going home.
So I go in for my quench, I pull my blade out, I realize that the blade didn't fully harden. So, with 4 minutes on the clock, I go back in for a second quench.
Just drop that in there. Matt's blade is laying in the bottom of his oil drum over there. I mean, he's quenched it.
I put my finger in the oil was hot, didn't really want to put my arm in there.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Placement, shut down your machines, drop your tools. This first round of competition is over.
Round's over and I don't know where I stand. You know, I definitely didn't expect to be screwing around with some gear for an hour and a half and then struggling to quench. This is definitely one of the toughest challenges that I've ever faced.
Bladesmiths, this first round of competition is complete. You guys are here jockeying for the Air Force Anvil in our Battle of the Branches final competition. Now it's time for the judges to take a closer look at your work. Matt, you're up first. Please present your blade to the judges.
You did it. Boy, was I worried for a while. Took a long time fighting with that steel, trying to get it to come apart and get a small enough piece to work with. I really commend you for sticking to it and pushing through. This looks and feels like a pretty solid piece of metal. Down here in the tang, there's a lot of stuff going on. But woohoo, it's a slab-handled knife, which covers a lot of flaws. So I don't see anything, honestly, other than the curvature of this blade that really can't be dealt with. Good job.
Thank you. All right, Joe, you're up. Please present your blade to the judges.
You do have a bolo profile. It's got a nice handle shape, a nice handle size, but there's a big issue. There's quite a large delamination. It's split at the end here. It's forked over. It comes back a lot of the way where it's still not connected. I don't know how far up this issue goes, but you may find that grinding one side and cutting off this big old part coming off to one side here could leave you with some steel that's usable.
Thank you. Mike, you're up next. Please present your blade to the judges.
Well, Mike, you nailed the shape. I like the fact that it has that real subtle recurve that a bolo has, yet a straight back. But when I'm looking at the seams on one side, there's some delamination up here right at the very edge. But I'm guessing that as you grind that back, you're gonna get rid of those pretty quickly.
All right, Mike. The one thing I'm having an issue right now with is this hand. Grabbing onto it right now, forces my hand to open up a little bit. So when you can add on scales to this, it makes it even bigger. So think about that when you're holding on to this.
Darren, there's a major problem with your blade. Your bolo was supposed to have been between 9 and 11 inches from tip to plunge grind, and your blade is coming up short at 8 3/8 inches. That is grounds for immediate dismissal from this forge. For that reason, I have to ask you to please surrender your weapon and leave the forge.
Coming here was definitely a risk for me. It took me out of my comfort zone. If you don't take risks, you'll never accomplish anything. I may not be in the competition anymore, but these guys, they're going to be here representing the rest of us Air Force guys. And in the end, I'm sure we'll see him standing on top of the pile.
All right, bladesmiths, congratulations. You've made it to the second round of this competition. Now that your blades have been tempered, it's time to turn them into fully functional bolos by attaching handles to them and address the flaws and issues that were identified in your blades. Additionally, gentlemen, 3 pinholes, a lanyard hole, and an acid etch on your blades. After this round, we'll be testing your blades for strength and durability in a flight helmet chop, and for edge retention in a sugarcane slice. Do your best work, and I remind you that after your blades have been tested, one of you will have to surrender your bolo and leave the forge. Good luck. Your 2 hour starts now.
I'm thinking, I can do all this stuff in 3 hours, and then Will says 2. And I just know my face says, oh. For the handle, I decided to go with a tan micarta material because it most closely matches the wood of the original, but the material is just tough as nails.
These guys have a lot of flaws to deal with.
The judges were talking about how big and oversized my handle was.
Wow, Mikey doing some aggressive grinding over there.
I've got a lot of material there to grind.
Yeah.
After the handle, I've got to thin out the main blade. The reason I waited to do that instead of doing it all at once is I want to get my handle glued up, because while the glue is curing, I can still work on the rest of this. It won't slow me down at all.
Matt, not only does he have the curvature going in the wrong direction, but like the blade is also windier than a snake's back.
Yeah. So I gotta work my blade, but I think I'm gonna work that last. 'Cause I at least want to be able to turn in something that they can test. So I gotta get a handle put on. Also, by flipping the blade upside down, I already can see that it's gonna be much more manageable to grind this bolo profile out. Along with that, I need to grind down the handle area because I have some pretty deep grooves, so handle scales aren't gonna fit on very well. Clock is ticking, and I'm just trying to get this where it needs to be so they can test it. Feeling pretty nervous right now.
I want to work on getting a handle fitted up, get it in place. My epoxy can be setting in the first half hour and dedicate the rest of my time to my blade. Because I obviously got some very significant issues if I'm going to make this work.
On Joe's blade, I mean, we're talking about the seam that's running all the way up the edge of that blade. What do you think he needs to do?
Cut off the mild that's coming away and try to grind it back to as good a steel as you can.
What I'm going to do is try to do a very careful hollow grind right along the edge where the D-lam is to see if I can't get to where the weld is solid. I have to make sure this knife performs. I'm here to represent the Air Force.
Bladesmiths, 1 hour. You have 1 hour remaining in this round.
The chance for somebody to really show their craftsmanship in knife making these days is really exhibiting some quality work in the handle. I want that Air Force handle so bad, I can almost taste it and I can feel it coming.
Got my pin handle through. I mean, I'm getting there, and it's somewhat shaped like the bolo. Get in there. But I wasn't able to take care of the warp. The time is really pushing me. I need to get this handle glued up, and then I need to get this mat sharpened.
In Matt's mind, the whole thing is make a complete knife. If you're fine straight, but you don't want to end up with a straight knife that doesn't meet parameters.
I'm definitely worried about the warp that might affect the way it cuts the sugar cane.
I had a big mess to start with, but by doing a hollow grind, I was able to get in where those welds were completed and basically able to blend the steel, and I was able to find where the welds are.
Bladesmiths, you have just 30 minutes remaining to finish your blades.
Right now, I'm going to work on getting the handle finished up. These are chopping knives, so it's got to fit comfortably in the hand real well. Okay, back to the blade. And then I need to put a final edge on it.
20 minutes, Bladesmiths.
I'm so focused on what I'm doing, kind of over here in my own little world. Does Mike have a lanyard to hold through his handle?
I can't see a hole from here.
I was sanding the handle, just getting the pins flush.
Oh, there we go. Forgot to put lanyard hole in.
I know I drilled it in the tang, so it's just a question at this point of hoping I hit the right spot on the drill press. If it goes wrong, that could ruin my handle. It could crack or split or shatter. $50,000 is on the line here.
$50,000.
Yep. Shaping my handle, I realized
That's more than what they normally do.
40,000 more.
Why?
Shot in the dark at the drill press. $50,000 is on the line here. I nailed it. Crisis averted.
Matt, he's pulling his blade out of the clamps right now.
Matt's got a little gap hostess right there at the Ricasso.
The tang, it's got a slight warp, and I have some pretty big gaps between the wood
very flexible.
Not gonna work. The clock is counting down and there's only about 10 minutes left.